Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today I want to talk about bloating in the modern first-person shooter industry, focusing a bit more on Battlefield 4 than say other games, but certainly other first-person shooters are guilty of the same things that DICE and EA are going through right now. For months, Battlefield 4 has been making headlines because of the problems it's had at launch, and this is something that I don't really want to talk about as much. We all know it's got bugs, we all know it's got problems. We've been, as a community, complaining about it a lot. DICE knows what's going on. We don't need another video complaining about that specific issue. What I want to talk about is bloating, the idea of adding so much stuff to one title that it loses its vision, it loses its inspiration, and the ability to literally go through and balance and check everything and actually make it fun. These games become so big, they get so many features and weapons and vehicles and modes that are expected to come around in follow-up titles that you get so much junk crammed into this game that it's impossible for people to really give it the time that it needs to get ironed out, to get balanced. And it's just unfortunate that Battlefield 4 seems to be a perfect example of just how a shooter can go wrong in this sense. Now, what Battlefield 4 is trying to do is it's trying to make a game that appeals to people who like to drive vehicles like tanks or Humvees or motorcycles. They're trying to make it appeal to people who like to fly jets and helicopters. They're trying to make it appeal to people who like to play infantry, and not just infantry, but all classes of infantry: snipers, support classes, assaulters, people with rocket launchers. And then they're trying to make that all fun in one package on different kinds of maps and different kinds of modes. And you've got 15, I think it's about 15 different game modes were available in Battlefield 3. That's what's coming in Battlefield 4. We're getting Capture the Flag soon. And a lot of these game modes were just kind of toss away game modes. You play them for a week and then never play them again. And they're starting to do the same thing in Battlefield 4, and it's kind of got me pulling my hair out, especially when we have classic game modes like Rush that just aren't getting the attention that they needed. Previous games that focused all their time on really good, well-designed conquest maps. Back in the day, we had maps that were designed specifically for one type of game mode. Now we're getting maps that are designed for 15 different kinds of game modes, and map designers and game mode designers are trying to figure out how to just modify these levels to work with all these game modes, and we're just getting a lot of trash, a lot of stuff that just doesn't work. And it's sort of up to us, the gamers, to play through all these crappy game modes and say, oh, this isn't fun, this isn't fun. And it's really like 90% of the game doesn't really work, and then that 10% that actually ends up being fun becomes the server queues, and that's all that people are playing. And what I hate about this process is it's kind of like the developer saying, hey, we're just going to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you, and whatever works, works, and you guys can figure it out for yourselves, rather than going into a map with the intention of making it really fun to play for Rush. Like Domovan Peak in Battlefield 3 is a good example of designing a map around one specific game mode. The game mode was horrible in Conquest. It didn't make any sense. It was one giant choke point. But for Rush, it worked out really well. Battlefield Bad Company 2 was full of maps that were designed for one specific type of game mode, and they did those game modes really well. And I realize, as somebody who's a producer and looking down on things from the top level, and you see your competitors coming out with all these game modes and all this crazy feature list, that you're thinking, you know, hey, we got to do that on our end. We got to build our game up, and we just got to add all of this junk to the game. And the problem is that you just simply don't have enough inspiration to get all these things in and make them fun. There's definitely game modes and maps in Battlefield that look inspired. You can see the artist's vision, you can see what they were thinking on how it was going to play out in certain game modes, and then you switch over to other game modes and you're like, yeah, this was thrown together last minute and nobody really cared about it. And these same ideas and concepts translate throughout other things, not just game modes and maps and stuff like that, but they translate throughout gadgets and weaponry and stuff. And we have more guns and gadgets in Battlefield 4 than any previous Battlefield game. And most of them are junk or just don't work right. I was testing out different rocket launchers the other day, and some of them I came across, I was like, there is no point to using this rocket launcher at all in its current state. You know, in real life it serves a function and it's supposed to do something specifically, but in game, just the mechanics of how it works out, it's completely useless. And personally, it makes me wonder if we really need any of this bloating in the game. You look at classic first-person shooters like Counter-Strike, which is still alive and kicking today, and that game has a very simple weapons list. They don't worry about weapon balancing quite as much because they put monetary values on guns, and this prevents the game from needing to minutely make every single weapon somehow balanced with other guns in the game. You just say, no, this is a $5,000 gun, so it's going to be better than the $2,000 gun. If you don't have enough money for the $5,000 gun, then you buy the $2,000 gun and you try and make it work. We have completely lost that in modern shooters. That doesn't exist anymore. So you have a weapons list of 80 guns and every single person in the game is using an Ace-23 and an AEK because it's the best gun in the game, and if you have no reason not to use it, then you are going to use it. Now, aside from being able to finally balance and tune your game due to all this bloatware, another issue that arises from just all this extra junk is the singular vision. You know, I think the best games out there are the ones that have a designer that has a singular vision. Same goes for movies and products. When you get so many different directions with these big games, it turns into a game designed by committee, which, you know, I don't want to take credit away from different people. Everybody can contribute to the overall vision of a game, but when you don't have a singular vision, when your vision is, we want to make a game that's fun for people who like this, and a game that's fun for these kind of people also, and then these people, so we'll just have a whole bunch of different game modes and a bunch of different weapons and a bunch of different vehicles, so nobody can complain that they don't have something that caters to their specific individual needs. And in that sense, you'll lose the vision of the game, you'll lose the direction, and you come out with a product that starts getting buggy. It's not well balanced because you lose the passion behind it. Looking back at the history of Battlefield, you take some of the great titles like Battlefield 2142 and Battlefield 2. Battlefield 2 had two game modes, Conquest and Conquest Assault. Capture the Flag came in later with Modern Combat. Battlefield 2142 had Conquest and Conquest Assault and Titan mode. Assault Lines came in later with its expansion. These are three core game modes and then a fourth for an expansion, not this huge bloated array of things that we're now getting offered in the modern games. Also, classes back then had a very small weapons list, so you only had to worry about balancing out a few guns per class and making sure that they worked. Your gadgets, you know, you didn't have a huge plethora of them, and I guess I'm not opposed to adding in variety to games and stuff like that. The problem is that if you don't have the time to actually go in and make each gadget and each gun interesting or special or serve a purpose, then you may as well not make them in the first place. Now, it's a hard thing to make the argument that less is better when it comes to video games. Video games are all about features and extra content and bonus content and more weapons and more maps and game modes and all that stuff, and everybody likes it. You know, I jump on the bandwagon. I get excited about new game modes and stuff, and it certainly serves a marketing purpose, but I know somewhere there's a marketing executive out there that's like, we added all this stuff to better sell the game, to try and beat out the competition. And in that sense, I guess it makes sense from a marketing standpoint, but from the same business standpoint, making a title that's actually good and that people talk about for days to come and building up the image of your company and the image of your game series is more important than say just the bottom line, the pure number of sales. If you got to sacrifice some of your sales to have a better image, you're going to last longer as a company, your series is going to last longer, and it's going to have a more fun and better lifespan. So anyway, that kind of wraps it up for my rant on bloating in current games, big AAA titles. I hope some of the higher ups at EA and DICE get the message and figure out what they need to do with upcoming titles and upcoming expansions and just the way that they develop games and decide on the future of their franchises. So as always, I would love to hear your opinions, not just DICE or EA bashing, but more constructive stuff. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think the game is too bloated, or do you think a well-oiled development team can actually add all this kind of stuff to a game and still have it work really well with a good balance and a good vision behind it? As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.